Hello everyone, welcome back to Unexplained South Africa. I'm your host Yaku, and today I'm joined again by Brendan.
Hello again.
So on Unexplained South Africa, we talk about the paranormal, supernatural, cryptids and critters, legends and lore, crime and conspiracies, the unsolved and the unexplained. If you're new here, welcome to the show. Please keep in mind that English is our second language and some South African slang and dialect terms might be unfamiliar to you. The podcast is intended for adult audiences due to the use of strong language. I'm going to break this episode up in a few parts as the story is quite long, but it's very interesting. So, in this week's episode, we cover the Waterbobbejaan, which translates to the water baboon.
Nice.
So, around the world, there are these ape-like beings, upright walking ape beings with huge feet. They are known as Sasquatches or Bigfoot. It's not big feet if they are in multiples. If they're in groups, they're still called Bigfoot. And Bigfoot is the name given in the North American area of the creature. So there's a book by Daleen Mattia, Villa se kind, which they also talk about Grootvoete, Bigfoot, but don't get them confused because those are only elephants. So the name Bigfoot comes from what is left behind by them, their footprints. So, yes, basically they see the creature and then they check the feet. And
Okay.
yeah, there was a short clip. It was about a minute long. It's called the Patterson-Gimlin film. And it's perhaps the best known evidence of Bigfoot. Have you seen the clip, Brennan?
No, I have not.
Okay, I'll put it up on the Facebook page and then you can have a look at it.
Okay, that would be cool.
It's old and it's grainy, but you can see it's like it walks. I can't now get the backstory of it, but you see it walking like from the left to the right of the screen, and then
Okay.
it like waves its arms, and then it looks over its right shoulder, and then it looks
Okay.
back, and then it's like on a light pace. So
Okay.
the people who've analyzed that footage say it's a female because there is some boob action happening there. But
Okay,
anyways,
weird.
yeah.
Okay. I'll do my own research about it, yeah. It's weird actually, but okay.
Yeah,
But like okay, I'll do my own research about it, yeah. Yeah.
all right. Okay, there are Bigfoot names for the creatures all over the world. I've got a list here. In Mongolia, they called the Almas. In South America, Mapangwari. Northeast India, they called Mande Burung. I saw a small documentary. They found Yeti footprints in the Himalayas. They were found by Indian crew, which was fascinating.
Okay, I'll check into that as well. Yeah.
In Japan, they call them the Hibagon. In the Philippines, the Amumongu. Yeah, they've got cool names.
Okay.
Southeast Asia, Batutut.
What to do?
And in Scotland, that one I'm going to butcher. Fearlieth. I don't think that's right. Okay.
It's right, man. It's right.
Yeah. In America, they've got a few. Bigfoot, that's the most famous one. And then the Falk monster. They've got the Grassman. They've got the Sasquatch. And then in Florida, they've got the skunk ape. Well, Florida, North Carolina, Arkansas, that type of swampland places. And then in Indonesia, they've got orang pendek. In Russia, they've got one, it's called the mink. And then in China, they call yeren. And then in Australia, they've got the yowie. I've got a few stories about the yowie as well, but whenever in the future or like a mini episode or something, I can tell those stories. They're quite interesting.
Okay, sounds yowie.
Nice. Okay, so that's what today's episode is about. We have a Bigfoot of our own, and our version is called Waterbobbejaan. So, unlike its herbivorous American cousin, the Waterbobbejaan, as we call it in South Africa, it's been accused of terrorizing people. It's been accused of killing people. All like types of livestock terrors, ripping cattle, goats, chickens, anything it can catch. The one in our story today is a gentle one, but our story comes from a book. It's called Die Waterbobbejaan from Ben Venter. But he's also got another book called Sakamatlakobata, which is also about Waterbobbejaan, but that's more of a horror type of book where it's a vicious killer. So if we get good feedback on this episode, I'll do Sakamatlakobata in the future. I've tried to condense the story a bit, but if there are people out there who enjoy listening to my voice, I will audiobook this. I will read it out for you. So yeah, in Africa, there's been sightings of the Waterbobbejaan, or whatever the other folk nations called it. Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, in the Congo. I've heard stories Namibia, Kenya, and even as far as Egypt. So yeah, we've also got them in Africa, which is cool. I'll post a pic of how the Waterbobbejaan looks on the Facebook page, so you can see. As far as the research I've done, it looks like Rafiki from Lion King, like what do they call those monkeys?
Mandrills.
It's a baboon, mandrill baboons,
Okay.
because they don't have tails. Baboon doesn't have a tail. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Africa is the only continent that's got great apes. So,
What?
like chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas.
That's
No,
pretty
but
cool.
orangutans come in India.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a great ape. Anyways, okay, let's continue.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so our story begins in 1898 when Sakamatlakobata and his family moved to Bobbejaan Kraans. So Sakamatlakobata, that is his Bantu name. I'm gonna say it a few times. I hope I get it correct every time. I work with a few black people at work, Tswana speakers. They don't recognize that name, so it must be an old Bantu name. The modern Bantu languages are Tswana, Setswana. I think his name is Koos because in the book his wife calls him Koiki, like a pet name or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in Afrikaans we like to make stuff small, so there's always that key at the back of words. Our international listeners, if you're listening, that is it's an Afrikaans thing. It's weird. We don't call it a shoe, we call it a squinky. We like to make it small.
Yeah,
Okay, anyways,
it's
let's
stupid,
carry on.
but yeah. Cool.
Okay, so Bobbejaan Krans is in the Maruku district. It's in the northwest province. So the family, I don't know where they moved from, but back in those days there wasn't cars and stuff, so they still had ox wagons or um, horse-drawn carriages, but it's not a carriage; it's a wagon. And yeah, so they got to the farm. Um, Sakamatlakobata, he bought the farm at a very good price because the previous owners just left it as it was and yeah, went on their way. So when they got to the farm, the farmhouse was now already nature has took it back. The windows were missing and the doors were missing. It had a thatch roof that collapsed in. Yeah, so yeah, that's just like a picture. Um, in front of the house, there was a big tree that they now parked the wagon under. And yeah, they started to unpack and stuff. And he's got 3 boys. I'm not sure about how many girls he's got. They don't say in the story. Okay, but he's got 3 boys. They unpacked the wagon, started setting up tents, and then they also made a pasture out of a branches and stuff. Brennan, is pasture the correct word? Beeskraal in Engels?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Yeah,
yeah, kraal that's an Afrikaans word.
yeah. So crow, it's gonna be a pasture. Yeah, that's right. It's yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna use pasture. So they constructed a pasture out of branches and sticks and whatever, and then yeah, they uh, Sakamatlakobata, he then went to go look at the house to see what needed to be repaired. So there was yeah, a lot to do. So they set up the tent. One tent was for the girls, one tent for the boys, and then Sakamatlakobata and his wife, they slept in a wagon. So he told his children, or the boys, he told the boys, they must be vigilant at night and they must keep the fire going. But they were so tired from the move and the building of the tents and the pastures that they fell asleep very quickly. So close to midnight sometime, the boys started having nightmares and they started to scream. So as they were screaming, the girls heard the screaming, they started to scream, and they woke up and the tent had fallen over onto the boys. So Sakamatlakobata, he jumped out of his wagon with his rifle and then ran to the boys' tent. So before he got to the tent, he threw a log or wood onto the fire so it can start up again. And when he got to the tent now, he saw that the tent pegs were pulled out of the ground. And he knew that he hit them in himself, so they were in properly. His wife then asked him what happened, and then he told her, no, the boys didn't hit in the pegs right. He then told the boys they must take their mattresses and then put it next to the fire while he made himself coffee. So he knew what he would have seen next to that tent the next morning. He was going to see footprints like that of a man, because Waterbobbejaan walks this land?
Majestic.
Jy gesê majestic.
Ja.
Okay, mooi. So he didn't want to tell his wife or kids what he knows because he knows it will make them uneasy and it will take away their focus on the work they have to do in the next few days. So the next morning, he walked to the tent and then he kicked over the visible footprints with his fallies. So fallies is like a leather shoe that the people wear here in South Africa. Okay, so as he was now there standing next to the tent, he was looking at the pasture to where the cows were in. And he saw on the far side of the pasture that all the branches and sticks were dragged away. And there are no cows inside. So he then called all the boys to come help him chasing all the cattle. It took them about half an hour to round up all the cattle. And then when they were done now, during breakfast, his wife looked at him and said that the boys also moved the branches. And then he choked on his coffee out of anger, but he said nothing. During the day, he then told his boys they must make a temporary roof for their mother to use as a kitchen, and he told them to hollow out an old anthill so she could bake bread. The following day, they were busy sawing poles for the new roof, and then his daughter called him and said he must come assist his wife with the bread baking. So he got up, went to his wife. She was standing there with the dough in his hands, with the dough in her hands, and she pointed at the anthill. And when he looked at it, a big rock was shoved into the opening. So he just turned around, called the boys again, and told them, go hollow out another anthill for your mom. Didn't say anything. So the third day, they laid the poles in for the roof. And the day after that, the poles were removed. His older son told him it's haunted here. Elder son is called Pete. There's no such thing as a ghost, Sakamatlakobata told him. The wind was just strong last night. So Sakamatlakobata knew that the wind can't pull round poles out like that. And the boys also knew it. But he has to keep up the ruse. So from that night on, he slept in the house, and the boys had to guard the camp and the ox wagon with the other families. The other
Family member.
family members, yes. So, yeah, after a few weeks, they finished all the construction on the house and then they moved in. Okay, so once they were finally settled into the house, he told Pete to take a horse to Calvin's village to go get some workers, especially herders. So Calvin's village is like where the black people of the time period lived. Calvin is the village leader. Okay, so the Bantu people didn't want to work for Sakamatlakobata, but yeah, after a few weeks, the first families started to show up. Before they showed up, him and his sons did all the herding of the cows. So they would milk the cows in the morning, and then Koos would then chase the calves into the field, and then Piet and Willem, Koos is the youngest, Willem is the middle child. Piet and Willem would then chase the cows into the field. So early one afternoon, there was a storm coming in. They first waited a bit because they know that their dad doesn't like it when they chase in the cows early in the day. But after waiting about half an hour, they started to chase them home. So just as they chased all the cows into the pasture, the storm blew over. Sakamatlakobata also expected a storm, so he didn't scold at the boys. He then asked, "Where is the pretty red-brown calf?" The boys all looked at each other and they shook their heads. He told them they must go look for her immediately. The storm is over and it's still light outside. And he heard from his neighbors that a lion has been seen on one of the properties a few nights ago. So the small calf can't sleep in the field. The boys were angry at themselves, but they went to go look for the calf. At one point, they split up and walked about 50 meters apart to look. So if you think about environment in this area, it's the 1890s. There's nothing for miles and miles and miles. It's just open veld. Long grass and whatever. Okay, so Pete, he walked on an old game path on top of the soft sand, so he was almost completely silent. A few meters away from him, he could see the calf lie in the grass. She was sleeping on her side with her back facing him. And he thought, now he's going to teach this calf a lesson. He's going to sneak up behind her and then kick her as hard as possible in the back. When he did this, the calf stood up in front of him. But it wasn't the calf. It was Waterbobbejaan. He was standing just a few feet away from Pete. He held his arms up and his fingers hung to the ground. Pete was petrified. So he was now standing in front of Waterbobbejaan, and then he bent his head upwards to look into Waterbobbejaan's eyes. So Waterbobbejaan then slowly lowered his arms, and Pete couldn't move or make a noise. And then from the other side, Willem yelled at Pete, no, he found the calf. So Pete looked around, but when he looked back to where Waterbobbejaan was, he was gone. So Willem then, walking with the calf, came to where Pete was. But Pete was like he looked sick in his face, like he had a blank face. And then Pete told Willem, look in the sand, look at the footprint. And then Willem walked closer to look, and he said, no man, those are just Bantu footprints. And then Pete said, no, it's Waterbobbejaan footprints. You can see there in the grass where he slept. And then Willem said, and then? And then Pete said, no, I kicked him in the ribs. I thought it was the calf. And then both him and Pete and Willem, they started to run home to go look for their father. Because they were now scared.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, well, I would also be scared if I saw something that I've never seen in my life stand over me.
Yeah, even we, and the worst thing is like uncertainty. If when he kicked it and that Waterbobbejaan like looked at him, I don't know if you're not sure what's gonna happen now. Are you going to die? Is he gonna hit you? Is he gonna eat you? I don't know. That sucks. Yeah.
Especially if you know baboons, because they've got those long canine fangs. They'll rip your face off instantly. Chimpanzees
Oh
as well. They hardcore. They don't play around.
yeah. See, actually, I have something to add in the end. Um, baboon I once saw at school, but we'll get to that in the end.
Okay, fine. Okay, so the next morning, Sakamatlakobata and the two Bantu went to go look for Waterbobbejaan. He had his rifle, one Bantu had an axe, and the other a knopkierie. So a knopkierie is like a cane, like a walking stick, but it's got a round ball on the top where you hold on. They used to use it as weapons. The Bantu use it. The Zulus also used knopkierie. Okay, so they searched the ugly gorge. So in Afrikaans, it's lelike kraans, but I directly translated now, so it's ugly gorge. They searched the ugly gorge and did not find a single trace or sign of anything that Waterbobbejaan left behind. So the ugly gorge was not rough terrain, and the farmer, he then walked the area to get to know his farm better. The second day, they searched a gorge located to the left of Ugly Gorge. They called this one Ugly Gorge. This
Ugly,
gorge
ugly goat.
was wider than the Ugly Gorge, but there was a strong river flowing through the gorge, and the grass was high, and it stood full in the winter.
So more ugly.
Say again?
So more ugly.
Yeah, well, not more ugly, but more dense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Makes
more
sense, yeah.
water, more grass.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, the third day, they searched the ugly gorge. Three uglies.
I was waiting for that.
So yeah, this gorge was very rough, and it was full of thorny bushes. So at times they had to climb uh, into the river uh, in a strong current to get forward, and then the cliffs were very high and very steep to climb. So where the cliffs meet of the gorges, a fountain came out of the ground. So it cascaded over the high cliff and formed a beautiful and wide waterfall. So behind this waterfall was a cave, and in that cave lives Waterbobbejaan.
Hmm.
So Sakamatlakobata stood in the gorge and looked at the waterfall with his binoculars long and attentively. He noticed nothing that seemed suspicious to him. And at sunset, he and the Bantu people went home. So on the way back, Sakamatlakobata thought of words that the Induna of Calvin's village told him. If you look for him, you'll never find him. But if you do not seek him, you will come upon him. And you must not shoot him, or it will not rain for years.
Okay.
Okay, so early the next morning, Waterbobbejaan saw the farmer and his two helpers arriving at the gorge. He looked at them for a while, and then he sat down in his cave. He knows they will not find him. Behind the waterfall of his cave, he feels safe. So many days, he sits in the cave's opening and peeks at the water curtain in front of him. In the summer, the river is stronger than in the winter. That's why he just sits in the summer and looks at the water here in front of him. In the winter, he can look slightly through the water at the gorge below him. It's very nice for him if he can look at the green gorge and the brown cliffs through the water. Sometimes he laughs when the water turns the cliffs and trees crooked. It's a fun game for him, and he never gets bored. In the summer, his waterfall is completely closed, and then he feels like pulling away the water curtain to be able to see what is going on out there. He never succeeds. And then he just sits next to the waterfall in the sun and looks at the whole terrain in front of him. The waterfall often lulls him to sleep, and after a while, his head nods and he begins to snore softly. A few days after the farmer stopped his search, Waterbobbejaan saw that a wagon was being used on the farm. Sakamatlakobata and his family are going to visit one of his neighbors that Sunday. Waterbobbejaan climbs a path to the top of a cliff and walks to the nearest creek. The finches saw him approach and they started to make a noise. They know that he's on his way to their nests to drink the eggs. When they were so noisy, all the small game in the area all ran away. They know who's coming. It is Waterbobbejaan's favorite pastime to catch a small goat and carry it to a hippo hole in the creek. Then the baby goat or a kid. Do you know a baby goat is called a kid?
I did not.
Yeah, I also didn't know. I had to Google it.
Okay.
He then, the goat starts to scream because it knows what's going to happen. Waterbobbejaan throws him in the deep water, and then he's laughing while the kid swims as best he can to reach the other side of the bank.
That's cruel.
Yeah. Waterbobbejaan does not understand why the goats are so scared, because lizards cannot catch them. Further down the Mariku River, there are crocodiles. So that morning, he drank his fill of all the finch eggs and then sat down with his big feet in the water. The water there is very shallow and it's very noisy over the large rocks. On hot summer days, the fish that are in the river, they seek shade. So what often happens is they will swim under the bridge of his feet to seek refuge. And yeah, because they think it's a rock or something. And then he feels the fish tickling the soles of his feet. And then he carefully takes them out and then gently puts them back into the water. So I told you he's...
That's nice. Yeah. Gentle giant. Oh.
Okay, now we're back to Sakamatlakobata.
Okay.
Okay, so Sakamatlakobata, he went to his neighbors. If I read the story correctly, him and his neighbors are all related in some way. So,
Okay.
yeah, his father-in-law is also there. His name is Rebasetsana. Rabatsetsana.
Okay. Also a Bantu name.
Also Bantu name. It means man with many daughters.
What? Okay.
Rabatsetsana. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the story it's them making fun of him because he bought a farm. And then they tell him he mustn't get angry because of Waterbobbejaan, because he was the original owner of the farm, and now he moved in, and now he thinks that they can now only there's going to be two farmers who farms that land, but yeah, he doesn't like their opinion, so he gets annoyed, and then he wants to go home again. So it's not a very fun visit.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there was nothing more to say, and he went home. Okay, so in the next few days, Sakamatlakobata and his sons, they were busy leading water into wheat fields and orchards. So Willem called Sakamatlakobata to come see what had happened in the orange orchards. The fences were broken and the young fruits have all been stolen from the trees and some of them have been eaten. He got very mad because he brought the trees all the way from Cape Town to plant here on his farm. So he was angry because of this hairy barbarian who came to eat everything.
Very barbarian. Yeah, that sucks actually. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and what citrus fruits, they take long to grow.
To grow. Yeah, and yes, it's a lot of damage actually.
Yeah. Okay,
Huh.
so that night at dinner, he gave himself a assignment. He was sitting on the porch, and then he told Willem to bring him a coffee, and then he drank from the coffee, and it tasted very bitter, because that's how he feels, bitter. He could see in his mind that Waterbobbejaan is sitting there in his cave, and he's laughing at him. So with a very difficult, he had to restrain himself from looking into the direction of Waterbobbejaan's cave. So in his head, he was planning how to get back at Waterbobbejaan. So the night after the orchard was destroyed, the farmer went to sleep very peacefully. His plan with Waterbobbejaan has been completed. He knows what he was going to do. He also knows that it is very stupid or a very cheeky animal that is going to bite 2 nights in a row in the same place. He did not underestimate Waterbobbejaan's mind at all. The next morning, the work on the farm went on normally as usual. The farmer forbade his family members to walk in the orchard. Waterbobbejaan may have noticed that there was interest in there was more interest in the home side of it than in the orchard. So after dinner that night, Sakamatlakobata put on his darkest shirt and pants. He then went to the blacksmith's building and then he took charcoal and smeared it all over his hands and face to make himself pitch black. Koiki, are you trying to scare the children? His wife asked him. Sonny already has a slight fever the whole day, and we don't want any convulsions tonight. He told her, no man, do you think I'm a coward? I just want to teach Waterbobbejaan a lesson. The farmer then took his long sambok and walked to the orchard. So, a sambok is like it's a whip, basically a whip. They make it from hippopotamus skin that they dry and twist. Okay, so it was a dark moon night, just to his liking. He knew that his eyes would get used to the dark after a while. At the southern boundary of the orchard, there stood a few solitary large boulders. They were in a straight line between Waterbobbejaan's cave and the furthest point in the orchard. So the pile of rocks were 100 feet from the nearest hill or other rocks. It looked like somebody dropped them off with a wheelbarrow. Samson played here, he always told his children. On the west side was a narrow opening in the rocks. The farmer rubs it and then he stands against the back of the ravine. Ravine is a better word than gorge.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, okay, anyways. His back is protected and he had his sambok to defend himself in the front. Then the long and lonely wait had begun. Sakamatlakobata knew that he would not hear Waterbobbejaan arrive. He must listen to see if he doesn't hear any branches breaking somewhere. Because it had not rained in a long time and the moon was very dark and it was a very quiet night. The farmer likes to think when he wants to, but he does not like to think when he has to. And now he must, against his will, think of anything to stay awake. It's not so dark that he cannot distinguish anything, but if he looks at a tree or a shrub too long, it seems like an object begins to move afterwards. So in that way, he didn't want to be scared unnecessarily. He does not feel much at ease, for he has seen and heard what Waterbobbejaan can do with his arms. He's not a scared man, but he knows if Waterbobbejaan decides to fight back, the sambok will simply have the same effect as a reed, and he does not intend to use another weapon against the guy. He hopes the element of surprise will help him chase him on the run. But it's all guesswork. Sakamatlakobata heard an orange fall, and then another. It was to the right of the orchard. He raised his sambok high, and he stood dead still. Then he walked slightly forward to the entrance of the ravine. There was no rocks above him, and he could stand like that at ease. After a few minutes, he hears soft growling sounds that became clearer. It came from his right side, from the side of the orchard. A few moments later, he saw the dark figure walk just 2 steps in front of him. The farmer walked slowly behind him. Suddenly, Waterbobbejaan stopped and looked around. The farmer stood petrified behind him with the sambok in the air. Waterbobbejaan turned his head as far as he could backwards. Sakamatlakobata thought about whether he should run away. But luckily for him, Waterbobbejaan looked over his right shoulder to the side of the orchard. The farmer stood diagonally behind him on his left. They stood there for a while, and when Waterbobbejaan looked forward, he began to pick up about half a dozen oranges in each arm. When he took a step forward, the farmer hit him as hard as he could on his ass. Waterbobbejaan gave a tremendous scream of anger and pain. He jumped high in the air and at the same time released all the oranges. The farmer knew that the next seconds would decide his fate. Waterbobbejaan will turn around and break his neck, or he will run away. Before Waterbobbejaan landed on the ground, the farmer hit him with the second shot, over his back.
Yes.
When Sakamatlakobata lifted the sambok again, Waterbobbejaan had already decided. Against something he cannot see, and against an injury he does not know, he is not resistant. It was so unexpected and strange that he couldn't think properly. So he jumped forward, and you can just see sand splashing behind his steps. He had never run so fast in his life. On top of that, he was stumbling a few times, something he's never done before. The farmer had a sigh of relief. He picked up an orange and then he started to eat it. His throat was so dry that he couldn't make a sound at all. He then slowly walked home. He was suddenly very, very tired. That night he went to sleep as fast and happily as a puppy. This was the first night in a long time that he slept soundly, and that was the last night he would sleep soundly. It would never happen again in the following months. And that's where we will pick up in our next episode.
Sure, okay. Yes. I can think if somebody hits you with a sambok, yes. And if it's just all of a sudden, yes, I would do the same thing. But yo. Yeah,
This was a good intro. I like this.
very good. Yeah, this is a good story, yo. Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna cover the rest of the story. Um, I know there's been some delays in our uploading. I didn't know it's gonna be this much work to do a podcast. I thought it's gonna be lekker do a 2 to 3 days of research at night and then compile an episode and then just gooi it. But it's a lot of reading. I haven't read this much since I Daddy came out of matric. So thank you guys for listening. That you stick with us. If we have new people, welcome. Like I said in the beginning, if you are a recurring listener, thank you for keep listening to to us talk about stuff. Um, I've got there is some good content coming, but you know it like I said, it takes a long time. I'm gonna We'll see if the next episode comes out next week and the week after that. But I've got a big subject coming. I know we keep changing it every week. We say next week is this subject and then we change it. I know, I'm sorry, but the next one, it is a true crime one, so I won't change it. But Waterbobbejaan, it'll be another 2 episodes and then
Mm,
we'll be done with that. And then
okay.
I believe I would have had the time to script the other one. And then after that true crime episode, we're doing some aliens because I'm
Oh
tired of
yeah.
ghosts. I'm tired of cryptids and stuff. And the true crime one, it's a bit fucked up, but yeah, I need something different.
Something juicy.
Yeah, juicy. I like that word.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
sounds good.
so yes. Can I? Yeah, can we close off?
Can I quickly tell you my baboon story? Yeah. Just to give everybody some, I don't know how to say it, but background maybe. Waterbobbejaan is a baboon. So something like that. Okay. When I was in almost done with school, like grade 11 matric, I was in Becker High School. So it's in Magaliesburg. And from my house to the school, you drove through like it's like a mountainy road. It has we called it the S-turns. Yeah, it's so a mountainy road, and then you turn right and then go to the school. So early in the morning, I usually took the bus, um, and then just right after that S-turns, on the right was Hornbill Lodge. That was a copy, or what do you call it? Um,
Like a
yeah,
guest
well,
lodge
fuck it.
or
Say
vacation
again?
resort? Like a guest lodge or a vacation resort?
Yeah, like a vacation, more like a venue, like a wedding venue or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah, but it was on the edge of a copy, like a mountain. Well, not a mountain. It's not that big, but what do you call a copy? It's just a the fuck.
Yeah, it's like the point of a small mountain, but
Yeah,
it's not a. Yes, I hear you.
I,
I know what
yeah,
you say.
yeah. I like how that sounds. Okay, the point of the small mountain, and then it goes up and up and up and up. So sometimes we saw baboons there, and I've heard about big baboons roaming those areas because it's like a vast veld. Like it's that well mountain beginning mountain thingy. But the one morning in the bus, usually I'm the last stop towards school and then the first stop from school. So usually when I get on the bus, it's like 10 minutes drive to the school. So when I get in, I sit on the motor, like right at the door. because then why go search for a seat when you can just stand at the door, sit at the door, and wait a few minutes, then you're at school. But the one morning, we were driving, and just after that distance, we turn right there by that lodge, and then maybe 50 meters in front, there was a baboon trop. What do you call trop? A
Yeah,
family of baboons moving across the street. But the main baboon, or what do you call it, the boss baboon, if I can say it in that way, was fucking huge. Like, it stopped traffic. Like, everybody stopped because it was standing in the road, in the middle of the road. But I can promise you now that baboon was standing on his feet, and he was maybe twice or three times as big as me. He's, well, muscular, like his arms are three times, four times my size. It was very huge. Like, there was a car behind him that was stopping now so they can pass, and that car, I'm sure he can just throw that car over. If you compare it like that, it was it was a very big baboon. And I told my mom that afternoon when she got home, and yeah, we lived in that Michali's house, the one we did the previous episodes of. So just to give you some but I told her, and then she said she heard of a lot of people talking about a very very large baboon in that specific area. So yeah, that just to like when Pete encountered the Waterbobbejaan, he was like looking up to see Waterbobbejaan's eyes. So if that and my story can make some sense to you, then you can understand how big they actually get. Yeah, so yeah, just a quick story, but yeah, they get big. Yeah, yo, that was something amazing to see. Yes, yeah,
that's quite interesting.
yeah, it was actually cool. I should have taken a photo, but yeah, nobody thought of that. Well, I didn't.
Yeah, in that
Yeah,
moment, you don't think of taking out a phone. It's the same like with UFO
yeah,
sightings and stuff. You're so
yeah.
busy looking at what you are seeing,
Seeing
you don't
yo.
think of documenting it.
Yeah, my first thing is it is so big. It is so like muscular. It was like if let me put it in this way, the perfect picture. Yeah, from what I've seen, it was like something. If you look at it, you don't stop looking at it because then you'll miss it. So yeah, I didn't think about phones or anything. I was just amazed by how cool it is and how fucking big it was. Yeah. But yeah, now you can close down, Yaku. That's my story.
All right. Okay, so that was it for episode 6 of Unexplained South Africa. I would just like to thank you for listening. I know some parts were a bit rough, but bear with us. We're just getting started and we have a lot of subjects to cover. I'd just like to say thanks to my guest today, Brennan. Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you, Yaku.
So, most of our listeners, I see that you're listening on Anchor and Spotify. Um, Please remember to give us a like on the podcast or follow or whatever, so you'll get notified when we upload new episodes. Also, like and follow us on our Facebook page, Unexplained South Africa, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. We post pictures and videos related to the topics we discuss on the show, as well as topics we will explore in upcoming episodes. Like I said, we are adjusting our upload schedule. As we gain experience with the podcasting, it takes longer to do proper research and uh, it takes longer to do proper research on the subjects, and to write the script for the next episode. So I believe it will be better to do a proper episode rather than do a rushed episode. So if you want to contact us, you can message us directly on Facebook or Instagram. Alternatively, you can contact us directly at unexplainedSouthAfrica@gmail.com. And that's it. That's all I have to say for today.
Jaco the poet.
That's it.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Mooi. Mooi.
Nice,
Mooi.
Jaco. Nice. Nee,
Mooi.
ons het hom gekap. Fucking legendary.
Dankie. Ja.
Ja.